Paula, how did you get to West Virginia?
Well, that's a long story. If you got time, I'll tell it to you. I was born in Buffalo, New York. It was just me and my mom. We lived alone. My real father didn't want anything to do with us. So we lived in one room. I remember 3 rooms that I lived in when I was a little girl. It was just me and my mom living on welfare. She had problems with her health and stuff. She really couldn't hold down a job. That's another story. But she was my mom, and she loved me, and I loved her. So we were very connected from when from early on. And we lived in one room where the landlord was a bus driver. And we used to ride on his bus sometimes for free. He would just let us get on. We'd ride downtown. We used to walk a lot. We used to walk everywhere. I was like 2 and 3 years old. My biggest recollection was when I was 2.5, when the Salvation Army delivered Christmas presents to us. And my mom said, "Now you got to go to sleep." So I went to sleep, but then I heard the door open and 2 people came in, a man and a woman came in quietly with Christmas presents and put them under this little tree we had set up. And then they left. And then, I was 2.5 when that happened. And my mom used to make a swing for me to swing on. She would take a rope and she would take a big heavy piece of cardboard, and I don't know, somehow she fixed it so it'd wrap around the rope. And I would swing on it because I was little and I always wanted to go out, and sometimes she was just tired and didn't want to go out again. I liked to go out and walk everywhere. And so I was little, so we lived in the 3rd floor apartment. This was a big house. The landlord and landlady were very nice. They even invited us down to dinner once in a while. My mother entered me in 2 contests when I was 4 months old. I won a baby contest. I won something. I don't know where I placed, 2nd, 3rd, maybe. But anyways, there's a big sticker on it, on the picture that I won, I placed. And then another time when I was 4, I used to say the story of the 3 bears all the time. I would recite it. And everybody would say, "Tell us the story about the 3 bears." So I would always tell that story. So she entered me in this radio contest and I won 3rd place. So we had a little party up in our room. And I was all dressed up in this frilly dress with a big bow in my hair. I can't find the picture, but she took a picture of me. And then the landlord and landlady came up, and somebody on the floor that we lived on that my mom kind of knew. So they all came in the room and we had a little party for me. And then I don't know why we had to move out of there, but we did. We moved to another room. And it was, the landlord was making passes at my mom. He kept coming up to the room. And so one day she said, "We're gonna move." But we used to walk all the time. We walked everywhere. We went, we had a little shopping cart. We walked to the grocery store. And I always liked to walk. We used to walk downtown Buffalo. It was probably 2-3 miles. It was nothing for us to walk. So we went for a walk one night, and my mom was upset about the room we were living in. So so we were out taking a walk. We used to walk down the front park in Buffalo because you could see the Peace Bridge where you could cross over to Canada. And we used to take a ferry over to Canada, to Crystal Beach. And it was a park, amusement park. I used to ride on some of the kids' rides, and we'd go to the beach. And we'd stay out there all day, and then we'd take the ferry back to Buffalo. That's in the 50s. You didn't need a passport or anything. So we were walking. It was dark. It was starting to get dark. My mom says, "Oh, we better go home soon." I mean, this is back in the 50s. You could walk the streets. The kids could run the streets. Nobody bothered anybody. So there was a for rent sign in this corner apartment on Pennsylvania Avenue. And she said, there's a for rent sign. She says, I'm going to go look. So we go up and we knock on the door. And I was little. I think I was 5. And she opens the door. She kind of peeks out the door, looks staring at us. And we're staring up at her. And my mom says, do you have a room for rent? And she said, yes. And she says, well, I was inquiring about the room. And she said, who is it for? She said, it's for me and my little girl. And so she kind of opened the door more, and she said yes. And she told us I'm not positive, I think it was $9 a month. Because my mom got a welfare check, it was $72. So she had to pay, maybe it was $9 a week, I'm not sure, but she had to pay the rent out of that. And she had to buy groceries. And then we never had very much left, maybe $5. I'm just guessing, because we would walk downtown and I was always want something at Grant's department store. Maybe it was a quarter, So she was very frugal at the end of the month with money. It was always about couldn't afford, or she'd buy me something. She goes, well, I can't afford that, but I can pay for this. So it was always like that. Seems like I'm still like that for me. But anyways, so the lady lets us in, and she says yes. She said, you want me to show you the room? She goes, yeah. So we go in and we go up the steps. She goes, well, I'll give you the room that's near the bathroom. So this room was right next to the bathroom. I still remember it to this day. I need to make a trip to Buffalo, to Pennsylvania Avenue, and see if that house is still there. And maybe, if it is, and maybe everything is still like it was. So anyway, she took me. We went upstairs. There was a bed in the middle. To the left was a sink and a floor radio. To the right of the bed was a big chair in the window. Then to the right in the middle of the wall was a big dresser and another window. And then there was a table and a window, and then there was a closet that was, you could see in, but it was a long closet that we could put her clothes in. And the bathroom was right next door to this room. And she had 5 other rooms. And my mom said, well, I like to clean. I could clean the rooms for you to help me save. So she used to clean those rooms to help save on the rent. So I don't know how long. The lady had a little boy. He was a year younger than me. So I was either 5 or 6, but then he was a year younger than me. And then she had a 20-year-old son who lived up in the 3rd floor apartment with his girlfriend, but we never saw him. Once in a while we saw him. He didn't like us, so we never saw him. And it was Jeannie and Carol Boyce. And so we lived there for, I don't know how long we were living there, but there was a little grocery store that was like diagonal across the street where we could go. My mom made a little bill there, like maybe $10 a month for groceries, and then because everybody knew we lived alone. But we were peaceful and happy, and me and Jeannie, we walked around the corner down the street to the school, and then down that way was Loblaws, the grocery store. So, and then if Carol went out on a date, Jeannie would come upstairs and sleep with us, because me and my mom slept in the bed together, and then Jeannie would come up there and sleep with us too if she wanted to go out on a date. So it worked out. We even went to Crystal Beach together. So it worked out. We were very close. My mom was always close to Carol. So I know it was June, and she rented rooms to men. It was mostly men that were construction workers or workers in Buffalo. So, but I don't remember them. I don't remember men coming in and out of that house. I mean, we never bothered with it. We were the kids in the neighborhood who ran up and down the street. So, we never bothered them. They never bothered us. But then this one man came and rented the room. And that day, my mom got a haircut. Carol said, my mom wanted to cut her hair short. So Carol took her in the kitchen and she cut her hair short. It was real, real short. When she came out, she had on these pedal pushers and her hair was real short, and we were all sitting on the porch. Me and Jeannie were jumping around, bouncing around on the porch, and Carol and my mom, Margaret, were sitting on the porch. And this man came out, and he looked at us, or he looked at them, and he left. And then he came back up later. He must have went out to eat, get something to eat. Then he came back up, and he looked at my mom and Carol, and then all of a sudden he went upstairs, I think, came back down and sat on the porch with all of them and was talking to them. And that was in June. And he was from West Virginia, Belington, West Virginia, which is about 10 miles away from Elkins, which is a ski resort place. People go skiing there. But it's a little mountain town. It was a coal mining town. So they met in June, and they got married in September. I believe it was 1954. September 23rd, 1954. And the first thing he did was take my mother to West Virginia to meet his mother. And then they came back, and then lo and behold, his mom was diabetic. She's probably 75 or 80, and she was having some health issues, and the doctor said that she shouldn't be living alone. So my stepfather was a construction worker, so in the winter he didn't work because there was no work. He would collect his unemployment. So who do you think's going to go live with them in West Virginia? Us. So we pack up, and we didn't have anything but clothes and very few households. My mom cooked on a hot plate in the room. She had a 2-burner hot plate, and it wasn't supposed. You weren't supposed to, but because Carol said, just as long as you make everything really safe, okay, because I know you and Paula can't afford to go out and eat, and so but anyways, I mean, I was happy and peaceful. I was I was a happy little kid. I had my mom. I loved my mom. My mom was sitting in the room one day. She said, one day we're going to travel. We're going to go to California. We're going to see places. So anyway, so we moved to West Virginia to take care of his mom, who lived on an old farmhouse. The paint was off, and I read stuff like this in books. I don't know how I remember. I said, gee, did I really read this in books? How did I know this stuff? But anyways, it was a farmhouse with holes in the floor of the porch. She said, don't walk on the porch because you'll fall through. It was a 5-room farmhouse. She used to cook, can, and make quilts. I wish I had one of her quilts because they were beautiful. And she couldn't hear very well, so she always thought my name was Polly. She couldn't say she never knew that it was Paula. She always called me Polly. You couldn't get it. Paula, it's Paula. Hi. Well, anyways, to her I was Polly. But every time we went to visit, she always made me big sugar cookies. She'd make me a big jar of them. And she had outhouse, and cold running water in the sink. And so we ended up moving in there. She had a pot-belly stove in the front room, a coal shed outside, which was $30 to fill it up for the winter. At 3 o'clock in the morning, faithfully, because the house would really get cold, and she would fill up that coal stove, and then she'd start the fire about 3:30 in the morning, and then it would heat up, and then she'd be in the kitchen cooking eggs and bacon, and she'd have you up at 6:30 in the morning. I'd be sitting there like this, eating eggs and bacon, and I hated it at first. I was so mad because this is not what I envisioned to be doing. But after a while, those are such fond memories, and those were the best eggs and bacon I ever had in my whole entire life, ever. Once in a while, I get eggs and bacon that taste like hers tasted. And she was a really fiery lady. She used to give herself insulin injections, she'd rotate the sides. She knew how to do that. And she was like in her 80s, so she still had gardens around her house. She still washed her clothes on that wringer washer. She baked. She did everything, and she had 7 kids. She raised 7 kids in that 2-bedroom farmhouse. and the story shall continue.